All right, let's dive right into today's explainer by looking at something truly remarkable, the Border Roads Organization, or as they're widely known, the BRO. They're a highly specialized engineering force acting as the absolute backbone of India's national security. Right now, as we speak, they're executing this unprecedented infrastructure push along the northern borders. Honestly, if you want to make sense of the modern geopolitical landscape in this region, you absolutely have to understand the people who are physically carving roads right into it.
The BRO's official motto is Shramena Sarvam Sadayam, which translates to, everything is achievable through hard work. But when you're operating heavy machinery to carve a road out of a sheer Himalayan cliff face, hard work kind of feels like an understatement. It's a motto that perfectly captures the just exhausting, immense human effort it takes to reshape some of the absolute most unforgiving terrain on planet Earth.
So, here's our quick roadmap for today. Number 1, we'll meet the BRO. 2, we'll track their timeline of transformation. 3, we'll dig into their strategic impact on India. 4, we'll look at the ultimate geographical challenge they face. And finally, we'll wrap up with their future outlook and a quick recap.
Okay, starting with Section 1, meet the BRO and how they are bridging the gap.
To really set the stage here, you might be wondering, why the sudden, massive budget hike for these guys recently? Well, the primary focus of all this funding is the Line of Actual Control, or the LAC. That's the demarcation line separating Indian-controlled territory from Chinese-controlled territory. The main driving goal behind this whole infrastructure push is to objectively match China's capabilities along this incredibly sensitive border.
Let's move into Section 2, a timeline of transformation and how they finally overcame decades of bureaucracy.
Looking back at their history, the BRO isn't exactly new. They were originally formed way back in 1960 to secure these northern borders. But for decades, they were honestly just bogged down by intense bureaucratic delays, constantly caught in this tug-of-war between different government ministries. The real game changer happened in 2015. That's when the BRO was shifted completely under the Ministry of Defense. That single organizational move completely streamlined their decision-making and really unlocked the staggering mega-project capabilities we're seeing funded today.
But we have to pause and recognize the human element behind all this construction. Yes, you have military engineers providing the high-level oversight and obviously the Indian Army, depending on these projects for their very survival. But crucially, we have to talk about the local, casual paid laborers. These are the folks forming the everyday workforce, and they are quite literally risking their lives every single day on this incredibly dangerous terrain to get these strategic routes built.
And those streamlined decisions from 2015, they've empowered this brave workforce to achieve what actually seems impossible. Just recently, the BRO finished dozens of strategic bridges and airfields across eastern Ladakh and Arunachala Pradesh. But beyond the sheer volume, they are literally setting world records. We're talking about building the world's highest motorable road at Umlingla, plus pulling off the highly strategic Atal Tunnel. Let's jump to Section 3, Strategic Impact on India, and what we call the Rule of Three.
The BRO's main objectives can basically be broken down into a three-step strategic impact. Step 1 is bridging that infrastructure gap I mentioned earlier to ensure parity with China. Step 2 is allowing for the rapid mobilization of troops and heavy equipment. And Step 3 is keeping those vital supply lines open with year-round, all-weather connectivity. Let's dig into exactly how they're pulling off Steps 2 and 3, because it's fascinating.
Think about rapid mobilization for a second. We aren't just talking about rolling a few supply trucks up a hill. We're talking about moving massive, incredibly heavy T-90 tanks. To pull that off, the BRO has to build what are called Class 70 bridges. These are engineered specifically to handle that immense weight while spanning across just dizzyingly deep, treacherous Himalayan gorges. In a real conflict, being able to roll a tank safely over one of these bridges, that could literally be the difference between victory and defeat.
Then you have the absolute nightmare of all-weather connectivity. Naturally, these high mountain passes are totally snowed in and completely impassable for a solid 6 months out of the year. And well, you can't exactly run a military operation if your supply lines are frozen shut. So to fix this, the BRO is out there drilling massive tunnels straight through the mountains to just bypass the surface weather entirely. Their ultimate goal is to maintain unbroken military supply lines 365 days a year, no matter how much snow falls.
Which brings us to Section 4, the ultimate geographical challenge. This is a true man versus nature scenario. If we compare the terrain on both sides of the border, it really highlights that objective infrastructure asymmetry we brought up earlier. See, on China's side of the LAC, the Tibetan plateau is, well, it's relatively flat. That makes road construction so much easier. But on India's side, you've got the Himalayas, steep,
highly unstable, heavily forested mountains. It is just a massive, inherent geographic hurdle to lay down even a single mile of road over there.
And honestly, the steep terrain is just the beginning. The BRO is in this constant, grueling battle with severe elements. We're talking freezing temperatures, the constant threat of deadly avalanches, and sudden flash floods that can literally wipe out months of hard work in a single afternoon. On top of all that, because they're building in fragile ecological zones, securing environmental clearances can cause multi-year project delays, so they're always having to perform this tightrope walk between national security and environmental preservation.
Okay, finally, Section 5. Future outlook and a recap. Looking way beyond just roads. Looking ahead, it becomes super clear that the roads in Border Roads organization is really only a fraction of what they actually do. A perfect example is a current mega project in eastern Ladakh, where they're upgrading the Nyoma Advanced Landing Ground into a full-fledged fighter base. What is so mind-blowing about this is that they are building massive military infrastructure just 50 kilometers from the LAC. They are projecting major air capabilities right up against the very edge of the border.
Now, how exactly do you build a fighter base just 50 kilometers from a highly tense border? It comes down to their militarized advantage. Think about it. A civilian contractor would rightfully pack up and evacuate the second a border skirmish broke out, but the BRO works directly alongside the army. Because of their specialized militarized structure, they will hold the line. They continue construction and maintain strategic momentum even if they are under the direct threat of enemy fire.
So to bring this all together, here are the absolute core takeaways you need to keep in your back pocket the next time you see this region pop up in the news. The primary hurdle they face is geographical asymmetry with Tibet. To solve that, the BRO is rapidly developing all-weather mobilization. Just remember these key buzzwords: the Border Roads Organization, the infrastructure push, the line of actual control, and strategic connectivity. And that wraps up our explainer on the BRO and the absolutely vital role they play in shaping India's borders. But before we go, I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative thought. What incredible feat of underground engineering actually allows the BRO to pierce through the toughest Himalayan rock and achieve that impossible 365-day connectivity? Well, stay tuned for our next explainer, because we are going to answer that exact question by taking a deep dive into one of their greatest modern marvels, the Sela Pass Tunnel. You definitely won't want to miss it.